Mr. Mercado.
Here.
Mr. Dawson
Is here.
is here. Mr. Carderas. Mr. Salmont.
Mr. Kaderis is here. Just walked
Mr.
through the
Carderas
door.
just walked in? Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Salmont.
Here.
Mr. Tedisco.
Here.
Ms. Blake. Ms. Downs. Mr. Hilsinger. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We all rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first order of business is going to be the application for special permit on behalf of the town of Chester. Read the call. We're doing this one. You want to read off of that? Read off of that one.
Too much of the good life, Jeff.
Yeah, that's wrong.
So application for a special permit on behalf of the town of Cheshire, owner Ryan, sorry about your last name, Chmielewski?
Yep.
Thank you. RLA agent, application is for filling and grading activities associated with Bartlam Park expansion project pursuant to section 25 of the zoning regulations. Applicant is requesting waivers pursuant to sections 25.3.2, 3, and 25.3.2.11 as part of the request for special permit. Activities are located on the property at 520 South Main Street, Assessors Map 71,
Yeah.
lots numbers 89, 91, 170, in an R40 zone.
It's on the map. Okay, can I get your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Ryan Chmielewski. I'm a registered landscape architect with Weston and Sampson. We're at 712 Brook Street in Rocky Hill, Connecticut.
Thank you. And you have a video?
Yes, I'm just pulling it up on my screen. 1 second.
Well, I'm going to say for the record, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay. Mr. Chairman, for the record, I want you to know that I'm an abutting neighbor, but it's just a park that I abut to, so I think that would everybody agree, I could still sit and hear it. Anybody have any objections?
Foul balls?
Yeah.
Well, you never know. Somebody might, somebody could object to something, take it to court, and we'd all be in trouble. I follow the rules. I'm a rule boy. Right?
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Chmielewski, licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut with Weston and Sampson. I've been working on this project for the past few years before COVID through the master planning process through the town and brought this project through a successful referendum with those all in the town. This is a site overview. It's a bird's eye of the site.
Sit down.
I won't bite you.
And Route 10 is on the bottom of the page. North is to the left. And this is Bartlam Park. You can see the heavy outline is the general property line. And then the light area or the narrow dashed line, yellow line is what this project entails. This was the referendum approved master plan. I just want to show it here for context and show the main features. You have an entrance coming off of Route 10 across from Elmwood Drive, a right in and right out. That leads into parking. We call it the west parking lot and the center parking lot over by the existing baseball field. The existing baseball field is being converted into a lighted synthetic turf surface. There's passive recreation in the old Chapman parcel, meaning just really left to trails and walking and a lot of existing trees. The Great Lawn is in the middle, number 5, with a band shell on the east of that, number 6, and there's stormwater management and bioswales on the peripheral. This is the site plan today rendered. As you can see, it's pretty much a replica of what the approved master plan was through the referendum process. The only difference is we got survey the full site, topographic survey, and we narrowed down the footprint of the development to meet within the context of the land and get our successful inland wetlands approvals. So all the features remain the same, and this is just a high-level overview. So in terms of earthwork, we asked for 2 waivers. One was grading within 50 feet of the property line, and by the nature of the site, to get in the essential infrastructure between utilities, the driveway entrance, and stormwater infrastructure, we had some minor grading that needed to be accomplished along within that 50 feet. The second is the 5 acres of the disturbance limit. Really, this is larger than 5 acres of disturbance. We'll be going through the state stormwater general permit process and get approval for them. And we have a stormwater management plan and phasing plan showing that it can be done in 5-acre increments, but we really don't want to limit a contractor to only that 5 acres. And if he's able to manage it at one time, get the project done quicker, and that's what it's really all about. I know you have a full agenda tonight. I could go into as much detail as you want. If you want to look at the black and whites, some of the plans, but generally speaking, earthwork wise, we're at
The 2 waivers that you're asking for, the first waiver for the 50-foot exemption,
Yeah.
in what proximity of the property would you have to get closer than 50 feet to the border?
Can you see my cursor?
No.
Okay.
Could you go up there and just point to it with your
Yeah,
finger?
This area along here. Right along the new entrance drive across from Elmwood. We're doing some work. There's a small pull-off in an existing condition. We're getting rid of that pull-off and curb cuts and making a pedestrian connection. And this pathway generally follows the existing trail that's out there today. It veers out and around a small stormwater area. And then this is actually, we're pulling the sidewalk a little bit further away from the property line. So, go ahead.
So the 50 feet that you'd be too close to the border would be along the property line right there where that other building is to the right?
Here, just this small area right in here.
Is there a home there, or is there,
No, this is a business here.
it's a business, right?
Yeah.
So where you're going to be bordering would be a business, not
Correct,
a residential property.
correct.
So the
And there's-
waiver you're asking for is for a bordering line that is bordering a commercial building.
Correct.
Okay. Just want that for the record. And then, Mr. Desko.
So just to be clear for the record, so you're seeking waivers, the town's seeking waivers of 2 regulations. One is 25.5 subsection 3, 25.5.3. I think, I'm not sure that's how it was stated in one. And the other is 25.5.11. And just for the record, 3 says, at no time shall more than one undivided area exceeding 5 acres in size be open within the lot it being the intent of these regulations that the remainder of the lot shall either be undisturbed land or shall have been restored pursuant to subsection restoration below. So that's one of the ones that you're
Correct.
is to be allowed to have more than 5 acres open at one time.
Correct, for construction
And
activities.
the regulations also say that we can grant that, provided that the waiver will not pose any unreasonable risks to public health or safety. Do you have any opinion on that?
Correct. I'll turn it over to our civil engineer on the job, Joe Perugini.
For the record, my name is Joe Perugini, a professional engineer with Weston and Sampson. When we did, sure, it's spelled Perugini, first name Joe. In our plan set, we developed a phased erosion and sedimentation control plan. We demonstrated 4 different areas of phasing. For each area, and Ryan's going to pull it up shortly. For each area, we demonstrate that each area can be protected by sediment erosion controls. We're trying to give the contractor the flexibility to choose which of those areas that can be worked on, whether it be one or more than one. But each area is protected in and of itself. So when we look at the amount of sediment erosion controls, it determines the level of controls that we need. So when you exceed an acre of disturbance, you need something more robust, like temporary sediment traps. And we have those shown on the plan. They're sized for that area of disturbance because they contain a volume of stormwater that's carrying sediment and contains that and traps it so that the sediments could settle out. So each of these areas are protected in and of themselves. They can be opened up concurrently or individually, but they're all protected. So we've shown a design that can handle the sediment load that is generated by that area if it's disturbed. And one item to point out that all around the perimeter, we comply with the state requirements to double up our sediment control measures. So regardless of whether it's an acre disturbance or more, we use dual measures of silt fence backed with compost filter tubes or any combination of those. But we also, once you exceed an acre of disturbance, we start to design these sediment traps. So if you get a very large storm, which would blow by any silt fence or straw bales, these will capture that runoff.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Yeah, just for the record, the other regulation, I think we should lay them out. It says that in all stages of the work, where any excavation or fill will have a depth of 10 feet or more and create a slope of more than 1 foot vertical or 2 feet horizontal distance. There shall be a substantial fence enclosing the fill or excavation at least 6 feet in height with suitable gates. Such fence shall be located 50 feet or more from the edge of the excavation or fill. And you're seeking to waive that particular requirement?
Yes, the maximum excavation depth to get to subgrade is around 6 feet, 6 to 8 feet. So it's under that 10 feet. Additionally, that is in the heart of the park. If you look at the north side of the Great Lawn and the south side of the field shown there on this plan on the screen, that area is the greatest area of excavation. So it's far outside that boundary. The other location to excavate is trench excavation for sanitary sewer. We're tying into an existing sewer manhole in the driveway for the parking of the old Chapman parcel. And we're also making water connection into Route 10 as well.
Okay, that's helpful too. But I guess I'm looking for is really to tell the commission that the waiver of the regulation is read, section 11 of 25.5, that doesn't pose any unreasonable risks to public health or safety. It does not.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Ricardo.
So on that waiver, is there any kind of fencing, even that orange fencing, something just to keep kids on their bikes out of there? Even a 6-foot drop they'll like to use that for jumps possibly?
Yeah, in our cost estimating for the, for the job, and as we move this forward, we call for 6-foot construction fencing. And it's a contractor's responsibility to protect the site at that point. And so whether, sometimes they opt for the 4-foot snow fence based on the site, but the minimum would be that 4-foot snow fence, and the maximum would be that 6-foot temporary chain link fence.
Do you have the acreage for each of these phases?
I don't have the exact acreage, but they're give or take 5 acres.
Okay.
We try to get as close as we can, but we determine the boundaries based on certain elements that you want to include, like the entire turf, or we even numbered the phasing by what we think they'd want to start with, which is that entrance driveway, all your infrastructure, utilities, stormwater, all the things that need to go in first, creating a laydown area, a subgrade, and all your pavement base area. That being, the initial phase. And we numbered them kind of sequentially, but they don't necessarily have to go in that order.
The bandstand seems to be the furthest thing away from any of the parking. The sidewalk that you're putting in for pedestrians, is that going to allow vehicles to drive on there to bring band equipment and whatnot?
Right, so there's a loop on here, I'll go up to the screen because it's probably easier for me to point through.
Or plans, because you can't even see them from here.
Joe, can you switch it to the site rendering? Is that easier to read? Right, so the driveway is obviously vehicular pavement. There's an access road coming off of the back parking lot here, through all the way behind the band shell, back up and out and about through here.
And that can take a pickup truck or a loading
Correct, that's
truck,
going to be
big
designed.
box truck.
That's going to be designed as the same cross section as the parking lot.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Downs.
Where you're asking for the waivers, is that anywhere near the wetlands in the back where the Mill River starts over there?
No,
So could you point out where the wetlands are?
the wetlands are this blue line all the way back here.
And
So
you-
our closest area of disturbance, the existing pathway leads right down pretty close to the wetlands. We're-
Pathway where you walk now?
Correct,
Yeah.
the existing pathway. So we're removing that and turning it back into, we're topsoiling and seeding that. But that's the closest point of excavation. There's a small stormwater outfall that picks up a small area of drainage as well.
Thank you.
Who's over here? Commission members have any questions? No? Mr. Desko.
So, Michael, we're voting on the, I'm sorry, there you go. We're voting just on the waivers tonight?
No, so you have the special permit for the filling and grading activities with the waivers, and you also have a special permit application for the use. So the development of the site for the expansion of the park. So you have 2 special permits.
Right. Okay, so are we going to hear something about the use?
They can explain it.
Before we hear these, I just have a couple questions about, so now, when you open up, I mean, we have a 5-acre restriction. How many acres is the Great Lawn, and how many acres is the athletic fields?
The Great Lawn is around 110,000 square feet, so less than 4 acres.
Okay,
The athletic fields are,
so the
that's a
the
little-
total project complete is about 20 acres, approximately?
Yeah, we have that number in our wetlands.
14
and a half.
Okay, so what you're explaining, this is what I'm trying to understand, like, where the Great Lawn is, above that, what's the close proximity to houses, to homes?
Here,
That's the bordering homes.
I'll
Okay.
pull up the full site plan that you could see that.
But there's,
several hundred feet away.
okay. I mean, my concern is that when you have an open field of dirt and the dust and all that stuff for the neighbors, that's one of the reasons why we have the restriction. So then there's no dust bowl.
Yeah, dust control is part of our specifications when it goes out to the bid.
And I have no reliability for contractors, because I think when we were doing the pool, we lost a contractor and then that put through a wrench in it. So I mean, if you lose the contractor in the middle of the whole deal, then we have a big dust bowl. That's kind of like makes me a little bit nervous about
For that reason, I usually like to mention that when we go to the state for the stormwater discharge permit,
Yep.
we put a plan together that outlines the stormwater inspections that are required for this size project. So we indicate the frequency and the extent of inspections that an outside inspector visits the site after every rainfall event, inspects all the sediment control measures, dust control, tracking of sediment onto the road, if silt fence gets blown over. If anything is failing, the inspector will inform the contractor to fix and maintain those measures. So we have a mechanism to enforce and monitor the
unless it's a
contract.
Friday afternoon, and then it's not till Monday. So if they open up a section and there's a 9-foot trench and they leave it for the weekend, we have a major problem, because there's a lot of kids down there that go into the park. And I mean, and I was a kid, I loved to go through all the dirt. I mean, that was fun, I mean, you're not gonna like limit those kids from doing that. So I mean, that's these regulations we put in place for the safety of our town.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's like
have,
that's kind of where, it makes me a little nervous opening up all this in a very, everybody's at the park, I mean, you have all the teams going there all the time. I don't want to set the town up for something bad to happen. And then, that's the commission's, we're about safety also, so I mean, I'm a little nervous about that, but keep on going. Go ahead.
Just real quick, how many feet did you say it was away from the residential properties?
We have a diagram that has setbacks to some of the buildings, so it would give some context to the property line. I'm just pulling that diagram up,
Okay, well, you said it's approximately 150 feet,
at least.
and that's all those trees. It looks on the site plan, it's all treed right now. So I think that's not going to, the trees are not going to be removed.
Correct. Well, there's limited tree clearing within the Great Lawn area. Beyond that, there's minimal tree clearing. This was reviewed at the wetlands as well. They did a site walk and they had no objections to the extent. Really, we shrunk the footprint of the current development, and I have a side-by-side comparison of the two plans where you could see we actually switched the side where we're providing that vehicular access specifically to pull away and maintain as many trees as possible.
Gotcha. So the trees will be a good buffer.
Correct.
Thanks.
So just to kind of, I have the same issue as Mr. Strollo does. When they, open up this whole project in one shot, I'm assuming they're going to open up the back end, do what they got to do, open up the next section, almost a phase within a phase, fences all along the way and everything else. I would hope that would be the plan anyway. No, I'm more worried about the kids and everything.
Anyone else?
As a condition, it's really important to do your work within the trenches and cover them up. You don't want to leave anything that's going to cause injury or harm to anybody, including workers on the site. 'Cause it's very easy to, if you're walking out there and you don't see something, it's very easy to do that. So it's either through means of protection of construction fencing, if you have to, for some reason, leave it open. But the goal would be to have it closed up at the end of every day.
But in the process, the stormwater management system is going to be done first.
You want to talk about timing, Joe?
Mr. Chairman, maybe just quick.
Yep.
So as the project, let's say, perfect world, they have their permits in hand and town staff would also be involved with this. We would have we'd have construction meetings, we'd be informed of the progress. And as part of it, Parks and Rec is directly involved. So if there's activities occurring out there, and let's just say there's some event coming this weekend, they'll know where the contractor stands, because at the same time, you're going to make sure that there's no conflict, let's say getting deliveries of material, other activities the contractor be engaged in that which may be not exactly the prime.
Well, like you said,
condition.
my concern is like if there's a jamboree down there and there's
Agreed.
hundreds of kids. I mean, like, you can't monitor all those kids. You don't know where they're gonna
Understand,
go.
but also the key is also with staff understanding, saying, listen, exactly that. We have a jamboree coming next weekend.
Yeah.
So I know that you're at the stage where you're going to open up this trench. Well, if you're not going to complete the work by the close of business on Friday, I think it needs to wait till Monday, just because there's X amount of kids, teams, et cetera there, which is something that we would handle through construction management through
Okay.
the town.
That's my
town staff.
concern. That's
So
my serious
So
concern.
they won't be given a free ticket to say, open it up, have a ball. There's going to be oversight by town staff that certain activities, there will be times, like I said, that you may have to work on the other side of the site because of other uses.
I know, look at some of the construction that's happening in town now, down at the Ricky site, the Chase Bank, and then where the Queen's Nails was, and they all have the construction fences up. Can we require something like that, just to, put everybody's mind at ease?
So yeah, they spec'd it in the cost estimates. You could require that, and that could be part of what kind of says, hey, listen, public safety address, because you have a temporary barrier that's set up. So you have a construction fence, it's a chain link, 6 foot tall, weighed down with sandbags. It clearly says, stay out.
Gotcha. I just think that makes sense, because if we're talking about a temporary fence or a snow fence or something, kids are going to go through that. So, looking at these other sites, I think that would just make sense. And then we put it to bed.
Okay,
Mr. Dodd.
This is a town project, right?
that's correct.
We're no different than a private individual. And number one, that's a good point. The kids come first, and not only kids. Everybody walks down there. It's a busy area, very busy area. I mean, this is something that should be planned closer in late November or something. Not planned and it's the fall where people are out still. And that's my opinion. I mean, the boards all have their own, that's why we're entitled to our own opinions, but that's food for thought as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's a nice job going to be in the end, but, we want to make sure that everybody can enjoy it without anything happening. That park, I live near it, and boy, down that area, it is busy. And I'm happier than heck because it is too. Thank you.
Okay. And now I think you're asking for the other waiver, for use? That was the third.
No, that's a separate special permit.
Oh, separate, okay.
And with that one, that's when we're going to discuss and that one is when we're going to discuss the bandstand and everything else?
Yeah, they can explain, and then parking.
Okay. I think I'm going to put out to the public to ask just a couple questions about this part of it. Okay. Anyone from the public wishing to ask any questions about this part of the application? Just come on up to the podium and just give me your name and address for the record, please. Oh, or you could go there.
Sylvia Glazer, 11 Stonegate Circle.
What's the,
11 Stonegate Circle.
and your first name
Sylvia, Sylvia.
and last?
Glazer, Glazer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have two issues. So could you pull up that map again so I could just show you where I'm concerned? I have some concerns.
Just watch the corner.
So if you're going to talk, just talk right into that microphone so we have you on the record, please.
Yeah, that would be better. Thank you. Okay, so my house is basically like over here. It's right in the corner. And when you were talking about runoff from the Mill River, the property goes down significantly, which I'm sure you're aware of, that there's a significant drop. When we get a really bad rain like we had last week, the Mill River floods and it really becomes a river with a current. And I'm just wondering what all of this construction is going to do to this part that goes down, that's right into our yard. And then also, how is it going to affect the river itself? But I'm most concerned about, I don't want to have flooding in my backyard.
Thank you.
So a couple of the items that are of concern are both sediment erosion control and the flooding, which is stormwater. As far as sediment erosion control, along that entire perimeter, we're going to have dual measures to protect anything from the disturbed area, any kind of erosion sediment from leaving the site. On that side, we don't have a lot of area that flows towards the river overland. So we didn't need to design large basins or anything like that. We feel comfortable with the amount of sediment controls that are being proposed. In terms of flooding, when we design the stormwater, we look at what area currently contributes to the Mill River. We cannot reduce it significantly, but we can't exceed the amount of runoff that goes to the Mill River because there are wetlands and it's a natural resource. But based on our calculations, we are actually reducing the peak flow and runoff that goes to the Mill River, and that's in our drainage report. So we have a modest reduction. We look at the entire site, not just the Mill River. The way this park stormwater flows off, you have some flowing, the entire east side flows towards the Mill River. You have some flowing to that commercial property that was discussed earlier, and you have some that flows towards Route 10, and there's a drainage pipe. We have to look at all the runoff and try to balance what leaves the site without increasing, but particularly for the natural resources, the wetlands, we can't reduce it too significantly. Otherwise, you can risk negatively impacting those wetlands. But for the record, we have an overall reduction in all directions.
But you have been through the wetlands already, correct?
I'm sorry.
You've been to the wetlands already, from what I understand.
That's correct.
And that was fine with them.
And this has been reviewed by the town engineer. We met with him early on before we even came to permitting, and he has given us the okay on the design.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions about this part of the application? And for the public? Any other commission members? No?
I'm looking over Ms. Glazer, so I just want to make sure that you got the answer that you're looking for.
I think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So this one, I believe we could close. If
I want to hear a little more about what the project is.
that's the next one.
So far, the same hearing, is it a separate hearing?
It would be,
Second
separate
applica-
applications.
Application.
is that right, Lou, or do you want it
No,
here?
I'm sorry, sure.
Okay. All right. So we're going to close number 1. And then we're going to go to number 2.
Application for a special permit on behalf of the town of Cheshire, owner Ryan, Chmielewski,
Chmielewski.
Chmielewski, thank you. RLA agent. Application is for the expansion of Bartlam Park pursuant to section 32, 33, 40, 41, 46, and 49 of the Cheshire zoning regulations located at the property of 520 South Main Street, Assessors Map 71, lots 89, 91, 170 in R40 zone.
Again, for the record, my name is Ryan Chmielewski, licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut with Weston and Sampson out of Rocky Hill. I think it's important to go over the existing use on site, how it is used today, and what we're proposing. There's really no change in use. It's just where the use is being located. So right now, you could see the site is predominantly athletic facilities to the existing Bartlam parcel. The old Chapman parcel is more of a passive meadow, walkways, passive recreation area. And that's what we're really proposing to do here as well. That whole area to the, in the Chapman parcel is passive recreation. The Great Lawn is meant to serve as a community gathering space without having active recreation to worry about. You still walk about without really engaging or worry about balls running astray or anything like that. Right now, also used on the site, there's shared parking with the high school. In both directions, if there's large events on Bartlam Park, tournaments, jamborees during the summer, there's shared parking across the street, and vice versa. If there's large events, even on a daily basis, high school parking consumes some of the parking area on Bartlam Park. Right now, the Bartlam Beats concerts are traditionally held up on, we call this D1, Diamond 1. They set up a temporary band shell here and project out into the field. It's also been set up, the last concert, last couple of years have been set up down in the area in the vicinity of where the proposed band shell is to get the feel and context of that site as well. So on our site plans, we have the parking lot, the parking breakdown. I could go through those in specific numbers, but overall, we're increasing the amount of parking availability on the site. And that's really to help with those transitional times between sporting events. When you're dropping off or people arriving early before practice or before game events, and there's lag of the practice or game going on, you really want to have some flex space for that to happen. So we're providing that. We're also providing a means for people who really don't want to be involved with the sporting event area and have a way to park and park near Route 10, similar to what they do today in that small pull-off, but provide ample parking and ADA accessible spaces to access that passive recreation space without being encumbered by the sports facilities. So synthetic turf field is being proposed in the center. Still is the same. It's the same sporting activities. It's the same amount of real estate as there is today. So while the surface changes, the use doesn't change. There's proposed sports lighting to take advantage of the synthetic turf to maximize the town's investment out of it and provide the most flexibility for late fall activities, and also mainly during the public outreach process, there was a lot of complaints about poor draining fields as well and not being able to get them on early spring. So that provides another benefit to be able to play and practice really in the early spring. We provided a little bit of expanded parking by the pool area, and that serves as a drop-off loop for events held on the Great Lawn. Expanded the parking a little bit there and added some ADA accessible spaces on that side as well. I think it's really important to go to this slide here and to really look at and compare side by side of what the two site plans are. On the original master plan, you can see the pool parking area on the east,
Which is the original?
on the left side.
Just, you want to come up and ask a question?
No, he keeps going original whenever you can't tell.
Okay.
Okay,
Just-
so I'll clarify that for you right now. Thank you. On the left side of the diagram, that's the original master plan that was approved during the referendum. On the east side is the plan as it is today that's tied into actual survey and topography. On the left side, the original master plan, we held the vehicular access on the east side of the parking lot and down and through. And we had kind of dual pavements to run through the site. Additionally, we had this more of a linear type approach through and up onto the peak of the hill here and back down and around. And since then, we've really respected the existing vegetation that's out there. There's some nice mature trees back there, so we weave the pathway through and around those trees with minimal grading. And again, we made this ADA accessible. Right now, the path out there today is not ADA accessible. So we made it an accessible route up to the top of that peak again, and then bringing it back down to the grades over here. The entrance coming off of Route 10 across from Elmwood Drive. Here in the original master plan, we showed it diagrammatically in and out. But once we got a new survey, there's a utility support pole across the street that we wanted to avoid, and it actually helped with the geometry of the in and out, right turn in, right turn out of the park. But in doing so, there's also a natural depression here along Route 10. We showed a bioswale on the original master plan that became a stormwater detention area. And we found, fortunately, that it does discharge across the street, and we're controlling the rates, as Joe mentioned before, going across the street. We followed within the context of the passive green space. We really zoomed in and dialed in to where the existing path is today and tried to match that as best as possible, because there are a lot of nice mature vegetation through there. We want to minimize grading impacts and try to keep it as natural as possible. Some of the parking numbers changed a little bit, and part of the original master plan, you don't see any vegetative islands within the parking area. On this side here, we do add some of the vegetative islands to meet the town's zoning regulations. And as well, again, adding accessible spaces to each one of these parking areas, the 3 different parking areas. We have site lighting. Besides the sports lighting, which was also shown in the master plan here, we have site lighting, pedestrian level lighting, to allow for safe and effective egress out of the park after the events, if there's any events that run when it's starting to get towards dusk.
I'm sorry, can I ask you a question about the lighting?
Sure.
'Cause I know some of the neighbors are here. Can you explain, can you walk up there and explain where the lighting's going to be, what direction it's going to go in, and how it could affect the neighbors?
So generally speaking, we have 14-foot high pedestrian top light poles. They're dark sky compliant, so they're pointing down. All the light is facing downward. They're LED lights. We've completed a photometric plan, and there's 0 light trespass across any property line. The lighting is limited to the Great Lawn area and the passive recreation area here to get out to your parking, and as well as parking lot lighting. We call it parking lot B in the site plan application. And there's no lighting in the back here along that trail, because that's not really part of the activity of a Great Lawn during evening events. We've met the town's regulations in terms of the lighting levels out there. We have a 0.5 foot candle minimum, and the rest meets the town's regulation.
As far as the lighting goes, I know that when we just had the fall festival, there's some things that couldn't be done because there's no electricity for food trucks or for other things. They have to run generators. Is that part of this plan to put more electrical outlets or on the light poles to have that ability?
Yes. So the electrical plan, we're pulling a service. There's a new pole coming. There's an existing pole on the west side of Route 10. It's coming across, running a service into a pad-mounted transformer. From there, it feeds into the restroom pavilion to supply power for the restroom pavilion and the field lighting, and as well as controls for the site lighting. And then there's another service that runs down to the base of the amphitheater to supply power directly to that. We met with Power Station, the town's contractor for running these events. He's a wealth of knowledge, and really we learned a lot from him, and we worked with him to come up with the right power supply to those areas. Additionally, around the Great Lawn, we're like every other pole or maybe every third pole, we're going to be providing power receptacles at each of the poles to allow for that.
That's gonna be
To
like
happen.
more than a house. It's gonna be more like an industrial strength, so people can run. bigger
Correct. You could
equipment
charge
and
more
work.
than your cell phone on it.
Okay, thank you. I know that was a concern, so that's good that it's being thought of now rather than having to tear the lawn up later to put it back in.
Mr. Mercado.
A couple questions. On the lighting, is it going to be warm lighting, not the cool white that bothers people's eyes?
Correct. It's from the top of my head, it's the 3,000 temperature.
And then on those light poles, is there going to be access for any Wi-Fi if Cox or Frontier or Go NetSpeed wants to put in Wi-Fi for?
That was
Park
not in
doors.
the original set of plans, but we're going through that right now as design development happens.
You might want to talk to the Energy Commission in town and see if they can help with, reducing some costs and adding that in the type of fixtures that are put on there.
Sure. At the very least, based on the overall estimate, running a spare conduit or two to make that happen and plan for it in the future is.
Yeah, I know
the way to
the
do it.
fixtures themselves, you can get ones that have the sockets so they can plug different elements into there.
Sure.
On the fields, I'm assuming they're lacrosse fields. Is there lighting for that, sports lighting for that?
Correct. It's a 6-pole system. And really it's not only lacrosse, we call it a multi-purpose field. It really could handle any rectangular sport. We sized it, you could see on this diagram in the white print, the white striping, that's a full-size football field. Goal posts on either end. And then smaller lacrosse fields, just like M567 is striped today. That's where this size field came from, to be able to accommodate 2 fields running east and west on this turf field.
And then
But based on the width of that turf field or turf area, Joe, can you wake that up? It's recommended to have that 6-pole system, so you have better lighting control, and 80-foot poles pointing more downward and having your light exacting onto the field.
with the ball field that's been removed from there, is it moving over to where the lacrosse fields are now, or is that those fields staying the way they are?
That's staying where they are right now. We did a high-level overview of the town's inventory of all their athletic facilities during the master planning process. And it was found, based on the use and the projected use, that that it doesn't provide any detriment to the amount of hours that you can put on your other fields in town.
Turf field, how long does that last and what's the replacement cost?
That's a great question, and it's around 7 to 10 years is the warranty, depending on how it's maintained, how often it's used, how heavily it's used. The lifespan varies. Some towns can go up to 15 years with the turf, but really every year you want to be doing your GMAX testing, which is your head HIC testing as well, head injury criteria to minimize concussions. You want to be on a certain softness of that. So as long as you're maintaining and grooming, the field at the high school has had great success based on that system, and we're looking to match that system.
This is from Mike. Do we know if is taking care of that in 10 to 15 years? Is that in the budget? Do we budget for that replacement? I don't know if you know that or.
No, well, I mean, Parks and Rec will budget for the annual maintenance of it, but like replacement, that's something that would be a capital need that when it would come up, it would go through the capital budget process. So, because it's a one-time expense if you're going to replace the whole thing. But I think the key is, as Ryan said, it's maintaining it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Mrs. Downs. So
Yeah, I had a question about the lighting in the passive. You said there's going to be lighting in the passive recreation area? Did you say that? I wasn't clear.
Yeah, that's in this area for those walkers in the late fall, winter time, get home from work. It's really to be able to utilize that part of the site and egress out, and also during events to connect people back to the Route 10. It's really egress lighting.
Okay, and that leads me to my other question. So, and I might be backtracking, but so there's going to be an entrance across from Elmwood Drive. And then this same entrance that we have now that's across from the high school will exist. And the entrance from Elmwood, is that going to circle around and somehow meet up with that? Can you go in Elmwood and come out across from the high school?
The aerial shot that we've had historically here shows when buses are being dismissed. I'm not sure. There is a road that comes and connects into the high school.
No, I don't, I mean, for in the park. So say you go in Elmwood.
Yep.
Can you circle around and come
Sure. So if you
out?
come into Elmwood, you park over here, and there's no left turn out of here. So to make a left turn, you have to connect into the existing driveway, go up to the traffic light and take a left, or you could take a right to go
So you
north.
you'll only be able to take you can get in from north or south, but you can only get out taking a right.
Correct. You can only take a right out. And that's in coordination with the DOT district and OSTA office.
So theoretically, you could drive a car in there and get out the other side, and
Correct.
it's not going to be like a speeding thing where people are driving too fast through there or anything?
No, it's not intended to be. It's never intended to be. We do have stop control at this intersection here, three-way stop control, not signal, but a stop sign and stop bar. And the same thing coming through here, that's stop controlled there now.
And the lighting in the passive areas, who will control this? My land abuts to the high school at the bottom of Patton Drive. So I see all the lighting that's on at the high school. I hear everything. Who actually will control the lighting, the timing, or any of this? Because I know that as a neighbor of the high school, trying to get any information or anything changed or something that's bothering the neighbors is not easy to do. So who would be in charge of that here?
It's really governed by the town regulations of when the lights can be turned on and off.
So maybe, your responsible party would be John Golick, Director of Parks and Rec, and/or Public Works. Those would be the two parties. But really, John would probably be your first call if, like, let's say the lights were too bright or they stayed on all night, which
Which happens at the high school.
we've had issues at other properties. We've
Right.
met with the responsible party to have those addressed, so that they would be the two.
Okay. Thank you.
Shipman Drive and Woodbridge Circle in different areas. Will any of the activities have any greater impact on the neighbors than the existing conditions at the park?
Per my understanding, the use of those walkways today is pretty extensive, and I anticipate the use of those walkways will remain the same. You'll be still be able to access that. The events that are held between Fall Festival and the summer Bartlett Beats concerts, which I believe are 4 times a summer, those will remain and programmed on the Great Lawn.
So they'll be happening in the same location that they're currently happening?
That is my understanding, correct?
Any other commission members, questions? Anyone from the public wishing? Oh, Tom, I'm sorry.
Just real quick, the turf versus a natural grass field, what's the motive? Is it cost or maintenance or all the above? Why do we choose turf over a real grass field?
It boiled down to dependability and the amount of use a synthetic turf field can sustain. Synthetic turf in general has the least cost per hour on the field for a town. The overall cost to construct it initially is higher. The amount of use is almost 3 times as much as you can get out of a natural grass field.
And I'm sure they've come a long way since the last 20 years too, as far as injuries go and everything else. Thank you.
Anyone from the public wishing to ask any questions about? Come on up, please. Just give your name and address for the record. You could go there if you want. Just, I don't think it's on. John Atwood.
John Atwood, 140 Meadowbrook
Sir,
Place.
could you go to the podium?
Go right up to the podium, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
140 Meadowbrook Place.
thank you.
Just very quickly, Elmwood, is there going to be a light for entrance or a street light to get in and out?
I don't believe so because they're doing, I'll let them explain.
No light is proposed. And you cannot drive directly across from Elmwood either. It's going to be a right turn in, right turn out only. And that is one thing that the DOT is looking for. Because of the amount of traffic circulation, traffic use, it doesn't require any improvements like a light or turning lanes to Route 10.
Thank you.
And the second question, how much more parking are we adding to Bartlett Park?
I'll read it from the screen. On here, there's a parking table that summarizes the existing stalls and the proposed stalls and the total. So existing on site, including the M123 parking lot, that's a main parking lot to the north of the turf fields proposed. There's a small informal parking area by the fields, by the community gardens. And there's the existing parking lot by the pool, as well as an existing gravel lot by the softball field and the diamond that we're converting into synthetic turf. That total existing spaces is 329 spaces. We're adding parking area. Here, I'll go up to the site. We've referred to this area here as parking area A. That's adding 57 stalls. Parking area B is adding 57 stalls. And parking area C is adding 25 stalls. So we're adding a total of 139 spaces and for a total of 468 spaces on site.
Can I ask, or I
Go-
guess you're still,
Miss-
sorry.
No, Miss.
I
Go
didn't
ahead.
know if he had.
So
Oh,
it's
go ahead.
about 40% more parking. So I'd ask the team to look at, do we really need that much parking? You know, green space is tough to come by. Once it turns into an asphalt, and I don't know the exact number we need, but people can walk across or whatever. That's a lot more parking. So we're losing a lot of the park in parking.
Thank you, Mr. Elwood. Casey had a question.
Yeah, so coming in across from Elmwood, you can only, you said right in, right out? So you can only come in from the south?
Correct.
So if you're going southbound, you would have to go in the across from the high school?
Correct.
So, okay, I wasn't sure what you meant by that. Okay, thanks.
So you can't access it from Elmwood. You can't drive across.
You cannot drive across. You take a left turn and go up to the light and take a right in.
But when you take the left turn from Elmwood, are you going to be intersecting with the road that's going to be coming out, or is that going to be farther down towards the yellow house?
No, you'd take the same exact turning movement as you would have today.
I know, but you have an entrance going northbound, right? You have an entrance to the park going in. Then you have an exit coming out. The exit coming out, how far is it from Elmwood? Because are you going to be drag racing the guy that pulls out of Elmwood and the other guy that's trying to go past Elmwood?
Yeah.
Where does it go?
So you could see the tip of the crosswalk on the bottom portion of the page.
I couldn't see
Okay.
it. I mean, second
Okay.
page.
Did you want to go to the site plan?
Right there?
Yeah, so this,
Yeah.
this might help a little bit better. Maybe zoom into the area here.
I don't like that.
So this is Elmwood Drive here. Route 10 is this going up and down in gray. That's the existing. There's a right turn in here, a little bit south of Elmwood. There's the utility pole that we're avoiding here. And then we're meeting, you really want to try to align it as best as possible here across from an intersection. And then you take a right turn out. So this person has to stop to look across and you could see each other. So you're able to make a decision whether or not
I
to
don't,
go.
I don't like that at all.
No.
I think that's horrible.
Like right up from the high school, it's a dead end street. I live all of this every day, day in and day out. That's a sense of
That is a nightmare. Because there's no, you have no, like, that driveway coming out should actually come farther towards the yellow house. So when it's unloading onto Route 10, you're unloading straight, not trying to take a right. You want to actually merge with the other traffic. I mean, that's gonna be, you know, for
So
especially
we'll
people
be-
in Elmwood.
Yeah, well, ultimately it comes down to the district and for the OSTA permit.
No, I
Our
understand that.
traffic engineer is going to, after we get successful site plan approvals, we then meet with the DOT and we're going to meet the design requirements of the state highway.
Can I just say the design requirements of the state highway that exist in town right now, they may be following all the rules, but it's still a nightmare trying to get in and around Route 10. So yes, it's meets the guidelines, but it's a nightmare. So that
Especially if-
doesn't fly as far as what I'm saying as far as traffic.
If I could point out, it is preferable to line up the two driveways because if you're a driver that's exiting the park, if you're too far north, then you have to look backwards to see the traffic coming off of Elmwood. It's preferable from sight distance in either direction to be able to see each other and make that eye contact. It's ideal for any intersection.
I would think another lane would be needed there. Yeah. Yeah, I would think another lane,
One north.
you know.
Anything that should curve around whatever this little, I don't know.
No, I mean, if that's what the DOT is approving, I mean, that's what's going to happen. I mean, the commission, I mean, we have to go by what the state's going to allow, because even if we say we want it a certain way, they could deny it because they're the traffic authority. But as people that lived in town and travel out of that, we see it differently. So I mean, and I mean, I don't think anybody on the commission really agrees with that turnout at all. So I mean, but we really don't have a choice, because if this has already been approved by the DOT traffic, then
But
And-
it hasn't been approved, has it?
It will be, it has
They
to
have to
go
review
under
it. They
their
have to
review
review it.
after local approvals.
Right. But I'd like to see it go a lot more south, like that road follow whatever that curved little, I don't know what it is. Yeah.
It's a diamond field.
yeah, follow on the top, make the road wider actually there. But that's
Where we see the most conflict is for opposing left turns. And the right turns is a safer movement. We don't have any left turns out of the park, so that eliminates a lot of conflict based on that geometry.
Well, I understand that, and like I said, I'm not opposed to that, because I think that, but coming out straight onto Route 10 to take you're going to get the guy that wants to take the left, because he's going to be there. But if you had something that flowed out, but if they have not, said that, then that's where we're at.
Yeah, but the way the light works, I'm right across the street, and it's not that bad, really.
It's Elmwood's the
Because
problem.
it
Elmwood
gives
is
you
the
a
problem.
turn, And then the light changes and gives you the turn. to go the
There's
other
not
way.
any accidents. The only time there's an accident in front of Elmwood is like when kids are going to school and it's a stop and go. And on her street at Elmwood, there's accidents. I mean, and it's usually somebody trying to get out of Elmwood, or so I said, now you throw this across the street. I really think it's not really great, but
I don't know about that many actions down there. You got the funeral home there, this place of business
Yeah.
there, and where they come out of the back of the high school. I mean, I don't see how that could be a speedway, but
it's not. It's not. It's just
Everybody got their
people.
own
It's
opinion.
people pulling out. That's
yeah,
the
but it's the
problem.
amount of accidents that the state goes by,
Hmm.
and the town police chief would go by.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah.
Don't they go by that?
So when somebody's taking a right out of the parking lot, is there going to be like cement berm or something so somebody can't take a left, or it'd be very difficult for them to take a left? Yeah.
You're correct. There is a minimum radius on that turn that if you make it too small and too wide, that they will take advantage of that. So we're going to, the radii that you're seeing there and the angle of it helps to deter that from happening.
Gotcha. And I know that, I mean, somebody mentioned it before, we're part of the town too. So, we're all here representing the town. But I know that one of the developments on Route 10, we did as this commission, we were told that that mountable curb would be a lot larger than the state DOT required because it was a private builder. They're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna go with what the DOT said. And people still snake around and take a left-hand turn. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as the town of Cheshire, that even if the DOT says it only needs to be this tall, if it makes sense to make it this tall, we're going to do it so that people can't take the left-hand turn out.
That's correct. This should be a full curb that isn't mountable. The mountable curbs are when you're trying to accommodate large tractor trailers so that they can drive over. We don't need to do that here when you have that sloped curb, and that makes it easier for passenger cars or people to sneak past
Gotcha.
there, which we don't have.
The only thing I think of mountable, whether it's a garbage truck or maybe the fire department, have they been consulted to see if that has to be mountable?
Yes, fire was consulted on this application. You actually have a letter from Jack Kastner dated it today. Yep. And it's basically their concerns are limited to two areas. Mountable curbs were not one of them. It was with the water main and the property will need to be extended to the parking area and walkway to outdoor assembly and fire hydrants added. Final design will be approved by the fire chief. The other was access around public assembly areas must be readily available for emergency Any access controls need to be approved by the fire chief, emergency management director, and chief of police. Basically, you put a gate on any of the paths, those three individuals need to sign off on it.
And we were given the truck dimensions of their largest vehicle that they anticipate having to access the site. And so we included in our site plans what that circulation would look like, how it would make its way through the park, make its way around the Great Lawn. So that can accommodate a ladder vehicle exiting and also entering and exiting this driveway without encroaching on the curb. And also, we make sure it doesn't encroach onto opposing traffic. So if someone is traveling on the opposing lane, they won't swing out into that opposing lane.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Anyone else from the public have any questions about this application? No? You have another question? Go ahead.
So that's not a question. We're going to talk about the bandstand at all, or? I see the pictures of that were, I don't know if this is proposed, what it's going to look like, or just examples, but can you talk just a little bit about the bandstand?
Sure. I'll first go to the site plan just to get everyone oriented where it is. In the center of the diagram here, you have the Great Lawn to the south. There's a concrete pad area that's roughly 30 by 40 with an area, a paved area in front of it to accommodate seating and ADA viewing. I'll actually pull up the grading plan because it's helpful in the discussion. Provided I could pan to it here. Okay. So the whole Great Lawn area, yeah, I mean, you really think about this in context to the site. And the band shell is really related to that Great Lawn area. That's the main event area. And so this Great Lawn area was really taking advantage of the existing topography that's out there. Everything is pitching towards this area here, and then ends up shedding water to the east and shedding water to the west. We're taking advantage of the low point of the site for that Great Lawn. So you have a gentle rolling along here, and then right up for smaller performances, we steepened up the grades a little bit to have more intimate performances on that band shell area. The band shell area right now is intended to be 2 feet off the ground. Again, we had a meeting with Power Station. He knows a lot about acousticals. We asked him his experience setting up at various venues around the state and elsewhere. And he hosts a bunch of different size events as well. So based on the current use out here, the committee went through at least a dozen different concepts, exploring different options, and really the one we have shown was the closest option that everyone kind of grasps onto. Contractually, we're obligated to coordinate with a prefabricated manufacturer, and you have limited options as far as that. We have staff that lives near Falmouth or has family out in Falmouth, Massachusetts, and said this is a band shell, and it's generally the size that would fit and meet the context of the site here. And so there's a few things about this structure that are important. One is we showed the overall size and scale of the band shell area. The back area has rooms for storage in back, and electrical or controls. There's the canopy structure overhead, and that really wanted to be a solid material. We explored using a plastic membrane, and really thought that wasn't the right move in terms of the covered pool incident a couple of years, so we wanted something more permanent. And B, the acoustical quality of wood overhead. It provides that sound back to people performing on the stage. So that was very important. One improvement that it could be made on this is to have sidewalls for a certain distance, to help out during inclement events. If rain comes in or it's forecasted, you don't want to cancel the event, and you still could hold the event and provide protection to the electrical equipment and so on and so forth. The other criteria is being able to support staging, the speakers and different types of staging that gets hung from the canopy of the roof has to be significant enough to hold up 5,000 pounds plus. Additionally, it needs to be ADA accessible. And so this picture here really meets the size requirements of what would be necessary for the size great lawn that we have out there. We compared to several venues in the state, whether it was in Hartford or Simsbury or other areas in the state. And based on the size of the great lawn itself, there's only a certain size event you can have out here, in which this general size fits that criteria. So in this particular band shell, you have I believe it's a 32-foot height. We have that it won't exceed maximum of 40 feet. If it's 40 feet high, that could start to feel too overpowering. And then the size of the room and back and the starting point is important too. It can't get too low where you're going to feel crunch and you can't actually service the band area.
So there's curtains that go on the side to enclose it?
No. So one of the changes that would happen, they'd be permanent walls on the side. Or we're still working out the fine details of.
And that would give you more of a backstage?
That would give you more of a backstage and also weather protection from the sides, and also help us acoustically sounds projecting out towards.
Would it go out on an angle then, or more?
Yeah,
The roof would be
ideally.
wider?
It might be narrower, and so you can see it's splayed a little bit now. It's
Yep.
narrow in back and wider in front.
Yep.
So it'd be a similar splay.
So how big is the proposed footprint of this building?
This one, the total square footage, it's in the notes on the bottom right of the page. It's around 2,500 square feet.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The great lawn area looks pretty big. Was it about 500 feet long and 300 feet wide? What's the occupancy? What's the expected load for that?
It's about the size of a football field. That the Great Lawn Loop is just under a quarter mile. So just to give you some frame of reference, and a football field is around 98,000 square feet. A soccer field's around 98,000 square feet. So it's just over 100,000 square feet.
So you could fit 500 people in there?
You could fit up to a few thousand if it was really a packed event, but.
Woodstock, yeah.
But I mean, think about the events that you hold today. It would be a similar size crowd. We're really
Right.
not looking to expand the overall scale of the events, just have more of a permanent home rather than, it's a pretty good rental fee to bring those temporary stages in.
And the other thing I thought I mentioned too, the clamshell looks nice and all. I picture behind it, maybe a concrete pad for a tent or something for the staff of the event or the crew or wherever, just more of a staging area behind it. Right now, it looks like just like a walking path. I just know from hosting events and everything else that having a private area to do business is always a good idea too.
Yeah, so this, this park in particular, the Falmouth Park was very narrow and long. We have, the area we have allocated is for a band shell is shorter and wider. So I anticipate that the back stage area, those rooms would be more to the sides, and you'd have a longer back wall to provide greater space for that behind the scenes activity going behind the band shell area. And it's a 12-foot wide path. We're still working out the details. It's the classic loading truck scenario. Do you have it 4 feet raised? Do you just have a truck that has a drop bed that you tailgate that goes on and off? So, but the overall intent is to show a structure that would meet the needs of the community in general height, general square footage, and general size.
Is there a little area for parking a couple of vehicles there for those entertainers?
The path is big enough.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a dedicated pull-off space, but if they wanted to park their vehicles behind the stage, they surely could. And that's part of the meeting with the fire marshal coming up. He just wanted to review, getting a hydrant located close enough, and B, we'll sit down and do additional coordination once we finalize the design.
Mr. Natale.
Okay, one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up too, I know that one of the other commissioners asked about what's going to be different in this new addition for the park versus the previous. When they bring in the temporary bandstand, it's all open. Maybe there's a draped curtain, so the sound goes everywhere. Looks like with this building, especially with the sides that you're talking about putting on it, it's going to project out away from the homes that are behind it. So it's probably more of an improvement. And, you're still going to get noise. You're still going to hear it. Probably sit in your backyard and listen to it, but it's not going to be additional. It's not going to be pointed right at you. Am I correct in that?
Yes, and that was one of the main points of locating it in this current location was it's outward projecting away from those neighbors. Yeah, that and the acoustics and the materials we choose on that permanent structure are going to be helpful as well.
But the size has not been determined. It could be 3,500 square feet, right?
Theoretically, but the budget won't allow that.
Okay, so the size is determined. It's going to be no more than 2,500 square feet.
It'll be plus or minus. I mean, we can't, if we grow it to 3,500 square feet, it's not gonna be feasible.
Okay, so plus or minus 2,500.
Yeah.
And it's going to be wider. And this is a building, a prefab building that'll be coming in, like the roof's all built already, or it's something that they design?
Yeah, we have architects on staff. We've been coordinating with manufacturers, and really the whole prefab versus build on site.
Yep.
Lead times and labor shortages for those prefab materials. It's going to be whatever at the time of the bid. We're not going to say it has to be a pre-manufactured building.
And it's going to have cement walls?
That's to be determined.
Okay.
Right.
And then, but it'll have steel I-beam style in the front.
Yeah, whether it's glue lam trusses overhead or glue lam beams or steel, that's yet to be
Well,
determined.
the other question I have is, will this be accessible to hook another stage to it? Like let's say, I don't know. Like I know that Power Station has like a huge stage that he just like a big trailer or whatever. Will this be able to like work with something like that also to make the stage bigger?
Not really. Like the
No.
size of the stage was really determined. One, there was a study done in Seattle that went through the whole process of developing and putting together a stage in a band shell area, and it depends on what type of events you're going to have on there. A
Okay.
40 by 50 stage is usually sufficient for an orchestra, but a 30 by 40 stage is also adequate. You just might not get that full ensemble.
And in these dressing rooms, are there going to be facilities like bathrooms and stuff?
No, there's actually in the heart of the park, which we really didn't talk too much about. But in the heart of the park, there is a restroom pavilion that's being shown right in the corner. So then it could be used not only.
That's new?
New.
Okay,
Correct.
where's that now?
Um,
We didn't talk
Here, I'll
about
go
that.
back to the rendering that hopefully you could see.
Yeah, I was going to say, you added 40% more parking space and you added 3 bathrooms.
Keep the body parts for what it's worth.
Yeah. How's
Again,
that?
so you already have bathrooms to the north. So that's by the Diamond One where the existing concert area is. There's bathrooms there. So this was really a supplemental bathroom and really sized, you don't want to size for that grand event, like the graduation event at a high school. You want to right size it for 90% or 95% of the park use. So it should be more than sufficient to handle the daily use of the facilities that are proposed.
And how many bathrooms are there now?
That are proposed. I think there's 4 stalls in each. So 4 stalls in the men's, 4 stalls in the
So
women's.
8.
And then there's a dedicated family bathroom as well.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
No, we spent enough
Mr.
time on this,
Mrs. Downs has another question. Go ahead.
It's not about the bathroom, but
right?
can I ask about something else?
Look what
Yes.
time it is.
Yes.
This is the only time this is coming before us, right? This is it, so
That's,
any questions I have about anything in this whole project is tonight.
well, for this phase, yeah.
So we're only
Unless
approving phase
there's a substantial change to the plans that would warrant an application to become back before you. But for the most part, for this phase, this is the only,
So we're approving or not approving phase 1.
as shown. Yeah.
As shown. Okay. I just had a question. You mentioned something about the town gardens. Did they survive this or are they?
Yes, that was actually one of the great aspects of the community engagement process we went through during the master planning. And those are remaining untouched
Where they are?
today.
The other thing is on the landscaping, the only thing I see is a legend on, I don't know what page it is. It's maybe like you flip over 4 times and it says existing conditions legend. It's the only thing I see. Are you adding any landscaping?
Yes, there's a landscaping plan as part of the set.
Is it included in this?
Yes.
Because I don't see it. That's fine.
I'll get to the
I'm
cover.
sure you're taking things out, but are you putting things in?
Yeah, there's a full planting plan for this site.
I may have missed it, but I was looking for it.
I'm gonna go to the cover to find out what page. It's L700.
In this?
Yep.
Ridiculous.
I have a 602, it goes to 603, 801.
This is a landscaping plan that was submitted with the package.
No, I'm saying I have L603, but then it jumps to 801.
It's not in the sheet. We don't have L700.
Did it get out, is it towards the back?
No.
Did it get out of order?
You know, because I really love it for planting, so believe me, I look. So my question is, what are you planting and are they native and non-invasive will be my main question.
Yes, we read the intent of the regulations again was to use native non-invasive plants. So I'll zoom into the planting list here. Are you able to? No,
See that? No.
can't read fine print.
No.
So in general, I could just go through the plant list. We have sugar maple, sweet gum, tupelo, London plane tree, white oak, scarlet oak, Redmond American linden, balsam fir, eastern red cedar, white spruce, white pine, and then a few shrubs to fill in the islands in the parking lot. Mainly, it's a tree planting plan, and outside of the great lawn in the back, it's going to be a natural meadow mix that doesn't get too high because you want to take into account user safety. So really match what's out there today. Also, the meadow area that's out there today by Route 10 and the rolling hills that are out there today, again, that seed mix we're trying to match because it's nice when you walk out there.
And where the rolling hills he's talking about, I don't see it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, projected completion time and start time?
We're looking to put it out to bid this early winter. And it could be an 18-month construction process.
18 months.
Anybody else? No? Anyone from the public wishing to ask any questions? No? We're all set down there? Good? Okay, I'm going to close this hearing also. Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 3. You got it? Let's give you the in-law apartment. Here. Special permit.
Application for the special permit on behalf of John and Jill Lashley, owners, Rob Estes, own agent. Application is for construction of an accessory apartment pursuant to section 30-5 of the zoning regulations located at property 25 Pine Brook Court, assessors map 93, lot 26, zoned R80.
Your name and address for the record, please.
Rob Estes, 38 Ridgecrest Road, Wallingford.
Thank you.
What we're proposing, my daughter and her husband Jill own the property, and they would like to build a garage with a one-bedroom in-law apartment above for John's parents. John's mom would be there more often than John's dad, simply because he's working in New Jersey.
Okay.
And she just wants to be a part of the kids.
I believe we all have it in our packet. Any questions from the commission members?
I was just unclear on the drawings. How are they connected? So the house now and
They're actually doing an addition off the existing garage to this addition, which would be the garage with the apartment above. So structurally, they're connected. They have a common entrance, working doors, et cetera, to both, let's say, the main house to the in-law apartment. I also just want to note on the record, the applicant provided an affidavit that they will only be renting out to family. That they're aware of this.
gotcha, normal stipulations, fire alarm's gonna be tied together, all that.
Yes.
This is so many year agreement.
Well, I mean, it's with
I mean, is it gonna?
5 year, right?
5 years, and they, under the regs, they have 5 years. They have to send the recertification to the office. And if for some reason they decide that they want to rent outside the family, it's not allowed. It'll be
Yeah.
subject to immediate enforcement action.
Okay, and is there anything in there that says if they sell that house that it's a start all over again?
So what happens is, since it's a special permit, it'll be on the land records. So
Yeah.
if someone wants to buy this house and they say, hey, I want to use the in-law apartment to have a family member there, they're allowed to continue, and since it's a special permit, it's granted with the land. If they say no, or they say, hey, I want to rent it outside, one, it's not allowed under current regulations. Two, if they did that, they would be subject to enforcement action. Or three, the kitchen and hardware need to be removed from the apartment, and then you just have a bonus room up there.
Yeah, but is that insert in the land records? and the
Yes,
deed?
that's what gets filed with their
And
special
who is
permit
responsible to do that?
for the filing.
Yeah.
So the applicant actually is required, so after this, the commission approves it, we will give them the form that's signed by staff that they file on the land records, and it's kind of like the red flag that pops up. Should there be any kind of a real estate transaction, someone will see this in a title search saying, you may have an in-law apartment, but you have limited to very specific conditions why you have an in-law apartment.
Okay.
Oh my God, Mr. Mercado.
So looking at this, I don't feel that this is within the sport of the regs. It doesn't seem attached. It seems like you're putting this little breezeway in between that could be removed at any time to be attached. It's not part of the house now. It doesn't seem to be part of the main structure that you're building.
It attaches the two buildings.
By a breezeway. I mean, I don't know if that's what we mean in our regs when we say attached. I don't know going forward. I know there's some possible new POC changes. Mike, what does our reg say exactly of what an attached building is?
In the past.
No, this isn't a breezeway that's attached. It's a physical addition. It's not an open breezeway. This is it's a continuation of the building. If it was an open breezeway, I would agree with that statement that, no, that
But
doesn't.
isn't there supposed to be one door between, not two? Or is this only one door in the back of the house and then
There's-
there's
so you-
no entranceway into that second building with its own closed off door?
So there is, so you have, off the rear of the building, you have an entryway on the main floor to access where the stairwell that serves the
You want your
apartment.
mother-in-law one door away?
And then you also have one door that connects the two. Well,
I could agree with two.
Is there one common door or two
I
common
think
doors?
they're attached. as long as
yeah,
they're
there's one that I would say interior, one on the one that starts on the exterior. The common door attaching it, that's by the 12 by 12 addition.
On the
If you go to the second-
left of the 12-foot wording?
Yes.
So basically this enclosed space, whether you call it a breezeway or whatever it is part of one side or the other. So there is just one common door.
Okay, any other questions? No? Anyone from the public wish to ask any questions about this application? No one from the public. Okay, I'm going to close this public hearing. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the end.
Yes, so I have a point of clarification for Michael. So there's 3 items for the public hearing,
Mhm.
but I thought the first one that the applicant withdrew for the sidewalks.
So that's what the legal notice is for. We can handle that on the approval that the waiver has been withdrawn.
So I'm still reading all
But
3.
we have to continue it from the legal notice.
Reading all 3 together.
Yeah, do it.
Application for cluster subdivision on behalf of Lovely Development, Inc., applicant Lauren and Earl Kurtz. Owners, application is for a 20-lot cluster subdivision at the properties located at 648 Wallingford Road and 66/14 Talmadge Road, Assessors Map 66, lots 13 and 14 R40 zone. Applicant is requesting a waiver pursuant to section 6.10.01 of the subdivision regulations with respect to sidewalks on the eastern side of the proposed cul-de-sac street. Number 2, application for a special permit pursuant to section 42 of the zoning regulations on behalf of Lovely Development, Inc., applicant Lauren and Earl Kurtz. Owners, application is for a special permit for a 20-lot cluster subdivision at the properties located at 648 Wallingford Road and 66/14 Talmadge Road. Assessors map 66, lots 13 and 14 in the zone R40. And 3, application for a special permit for earth removal, filling, or regrading on behalf of Lovely Development, Inc., applicant Lauren and Earl Kurtz. Owners, applicant is requesting special permit for earth removal, filling, and regrading associated with 20-lot cluster subdivision for the properties located at 648 Wallingford Road and 66/14 Talmadge Road. Assessors map 66, lots number 13 and 14 in R40 zone. Applicant is requesting waiver pursuant to section 25.3.2, subsection 3 and 9 of the zoning regulations associated with special permit.
Mr. Chairman, just briefly for the
Yes.
record, since your last meeting, the applicant has secured a inland wetlands permit from the Inland Wetlands Agency. You should have a copy of the report as pursuant to statute in your packet.
We do. Yes.
Before I forget, I was not here on the 11th for the first hearing, but Michael sent me the video of the hearing, so I've watched it. So I've seen everything and I'm able to vote eventually.
Okay, thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, for the record, my name is Anthony Fazzone. I'm an attorney here in Cheshire with the law firm of Fazzone, Ryan, Ricciuti, with offices at 2 Town Center, Cheshire, Connecticut. As the call does say, it's a continuation of public hearings that were held July 11th and July 25th. The second one being over a month and a half ago. And kind of a combination of factors because the commission doesn't meet in August and also because of the delay in the Inland Wetlands Commission proceeding for various reasons, including member resigning, moving away, 2 members having conflicts of interest. The Wetlands Commission was having difficulty having a quorum to hear our application. But last Tuesday, as the notes that you received show, they did have a quorum and the commission approved the application by a vote of 5-0. To remind everyone, this is an application for a 20-lot cluster subdivision. The application, excuse me, property has frontage on both Talmadge Road and Wallingford Road, a cul-de-sac coming in off of Wallingford Road, and private drive accesses for 4 dwellings off of Talmadge Road. I was present for the first applications on the agenda this evening and heard some of the discussions concerning the waivers for, with respect to the earth regrading permits, and thought I ought to just go over those briefly. Any subdivision that involves a street or private accesses to a town road requires a waiver because it involves grading adjacent to a public road. In this case, there's going to have to be some grading to match the new public road to Wallingford Road. And in order to get the proper base required by the town of Cheshire, there has to be grading and filling right up to the to meeting Wallingford Road. I don't know what the exact specification is. It's probably around 18 inches. So there's probably about 18 inches of grading that will be necessary to match both the driveways to a less extent on Talmadge Road and the in the new roadway at Wallingford Road. So we've asked for that waiver. There's also some grading along the adjacent property as the road goes out. Again, it's very minor. There is testimony at one of the prior meetings by Andrew Quirk, the professional engineer on the site, saying that it does not involve any public danger, and the minutes show that it's in the exact wording of the regulation itself. And the other waiver that we're asking for is somewhat similar to the town's request. It's a 5-acre to open up potentially more than 5 acres. Your regulation, because this is less than 25 lots, requires that the entire subdivision be done in one phase. It can't be phased. So there's a potential with the 1,175-foot length of the road and potentially a couple of houses being built along the roadway while the road is being put in, that there could be 5 acres or slightly more than 5 acres exposed at one time. And that's the reason for that waiver that's being requested. Because of the delay, I was going to go through some of the features of the subdivision and some of the characteristics that we think it makes it applicable and a proper candidate for a cluster subdivision. In the prior meetings, we talked about somewhat at length the relatively new plan of conservation and development, various sections within the plan that encourages cluster subdivisions, that allows for more efficient use of land. And I've cited in the record, in the minutes, those sections, and would just request, I guess, to make it simpler, that the commission take official notice of the portions of the plan of conservation and development that deal with cluster subdivisions. Another factor here is that this application is for property that's adjacent to the subdivision known as Talmadge Crossing. That's Copper Beach Drive. That is also a cluster subdivision, so that cluster subdivision is not unique to this neighborhood. Your regulations allow cluster subdivisions in all of the R zones, R20, R40, and R80. And it is basically, it's a residential development allowed in residential zones. One of the advantages here, and it goes into the use and operation of the open space that is a part of the Talmadge Crossing